Welcome to Postcards, a brief look at people, places, the arts and curiosities from around the world. On today's program, reintroducing pockets of countryside into concrete cities. The completion and official opening of London's newest tourist attraction. A memorial playground dedicated to the late Diana's memory. Primary producers benefit from the fair trade movement. And finally, a museum to help us understand crime and punishment. First up, it looks like the heart of the country, but Syon Park is barely 10 miles from the centre of London. Planes landing at nearby Heathrow Airport are a reminder that this is not Gloucestershire or Devon, but the fringe of London's urban sprawl. In the grounds of Syon Park, a 3-day rural fair called simply Countryside Live is giving Londoners a taste of the country. On day one, local school children got the chance to sample a little of rural life. Handling newly hatched chicks is not something most of these children would have ever done before.
Very quiet because they're very fragile today, so very fragile. They get very cold, so it's beginning to shiver, so I'll have to put them back in a sec.
Even feeding hay to horses is a novelty. Countryside Live brings together large rural campaigning organisations and individuals who care about animals. The overall aim is to educate an urban population about the problems and issues facing rural Britain. By bringing a bit of the countryside into London, the Londoners have a chance here to learn more about conservation, how the countryside is managed, and the issues that farmers have to face. Visitors even get the opportunity to turn their hands to some traditional country crafts, like making a fence from hazel branches.
Right, hands on, flat hands. Bang. Excellent.
And milking a cow, the traditional way. It was a lot for these youngsters to take in and understand in one day. One lesson some of the children found a little harder to come to terms with was the idea of hunting and other so-called blood sports. Fox hunting is a controversial subject in Britain, often seen as embodying a rift in understanding between town and country. Opinion was split among the visitors, some believing there was benefit to maintaining healthy trees and plants by keeping fox numbers down, those feeling it was a cruel sport. Campaigners like the Countryside Alliance, which organised a march on London 2 years ago to press its point, are hoping this fair will help bridge the persistent split between town and country. A spokesperson for the Alliance said part of the job is actually to draw that split together so that townspeople understand what goes on in the countryside. They want townspeople to not only enjoy the countryside, but respect it. Giving children an awareness of the realities of life in the countryside today, its importance as their heritage, as well as being a key economic resource for the nation. That's the message of this novel approach to practical education. As cities expand and concrete inevitably replaces grass, many valuable pockets of countryside are being lost, probably forever. Now though, Britain's Countryside Agency, with the help of a $16 million US lottery grant, is reintroducing 250 areas of greenery known as Millennium Greens into the heart of communities across the nation. The greens will provide a place for residents to enjoy nature, somewhere to sit and watch a butterfly or hear a blackbird sing. It's also somewhere where children can come and play with their families and a space for community events. The new Millennium Greens will vary in size, depending on how much space is available. It'll be up to local residents to decide just how they should look, the emphasis being on long grass and wildflowers for a more natural experience. For many children living in tower blocks and flats with no gardens, the new greens are also seen as a point of educational focus, a way of teaching future generations how humans and nature can coexist harmoniously. Since this green in a very built-up area of North London was created, dozens more birds and insects, especially butterflies, have been seen in the area. As well, the trees and the hedge lines help clean the air and offset air pollution. It's a great benefit to all the community. Each Millennium Green will also host a sculpture or other work of art with special significance to the area. Here, landscape artists are constructing a boat in memory of local author Jerome Kay. Jerome, who wrote the book 3 Men in a Boat, was once a resident of the area. Because the Greens are run and owned by the local people, there is a sense of ownership and participation in their creation and their maintenance. To celebrate the initiative, the Royal Mail has even launched a collection of Millennium Greens stamps. Currently, 250 communities across Britain are creating their own Millennium Greens, and if everything goes to plan, they should be completed by the end of the year 2000. Thinly stretching from one bank of the River Thames to the other, it's been dubbed London's newest and sleekest tourist attraction. And today, as builders were adding the finishing touches, the $29 million US Millennium Bridge has finally been opened. The 320-metre-long bridge has been designed by some of Britain's leading engineers, architects and designers. Their creation, the first ever pedestrian bridge to be built across the Thames. Experts are predicting some 4 million people will walk across it every year. Tourists especially are expected to be among some of the biggest users. The bridge providing a convenient link from St Paul's Cathedral and the City of London on the north side of the river to the new Tate Modern Art Gallery on the south. The bridge, a combination of steel, stainless steel and aluminium, is considered a milestone in 21st century engineering. The structure is supported laterally rather than vertically, which the designers say gives the bridge its dramatic appearance. Architect Lord Foster said 10 years ago the technology was not available to realise such a design. The last river crossing to be built in central London was Tower Bridge in 1894. Architects, however, say this bridge will be recognised as a monument to international cooperation. Countries including Norway, Poland, Finland and Germany all contributing to its design and build. After the official opening ceremony, it was time to illuminate the new bridge with a firework display, reminiscent of the Eiffel Tower spectacle on Millennium Eve. Frenchman Christophe Berthenot lit up the night sky over London in yet another Millennium tribute. It's the first official memorial to the late Diana, Princess of Wales, and one which captures the essence of her highly public concern for the happiness and welfare of children. Not far from her one-time residence at Kensington Palace, and in an area of London parkland synonymous with J.M. Barrie, creator of Peter Pan, this sailing ship is the centrepiece of a children's playground dedicated to Diana's memory. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Gordon Brown, gave a speech which reminded those gathered that the playground was in an area close to where Diana lived and often walked. He said he believes that every child who plays here will in some way feel the spirit of service that Diana represented. While government was represented by the Chancellor and others at today's opening ceremony, there were no members of the royal family there.
I believe that every child who plays here will in some way feel the spirit of service that Diana represented.
Close friend Rosa Monckton sought to dispel the more controversial side of Diana's life in favour of the princess's passion for children. In her speech, she said, "So much is speculated, often scandalously, about her life, that I think we're in danger of losing sight of one important truth. that she was passionate about children, about their happiness, about their welfare, and it coloured everything that she did. It was Ms Monkston's daughter, Dominica Lawson, Princess Diana was her godmother, who was given the honour of officially opening the memorial playground and the associated memorial walk. Costing a total of $4.5 million US with the playground, the 7-mile walkway will take visitors on a winding route through Kensington Gardens, Hyde Park, Green Park and St James Park. And for the youngsters who stayed on after the official ceremony, a live experience of the Peter Pan theme, which now shares the magic of this corner of London with one of its best loved and much remembered residents.
The crocodile! Oh no! No! Bloody anti-toad! Ah!
It's a familiar sight all over the world, but for Mario de Villas and his family, the price the West pays for its coffee is literally a matter of life and death, of real survival. For some years, the coffee growers are forced to sell their beans at way below cost, and this means no school for their children, no medicines, and crippling debt. But now there's a ray of hope for primary producers like Mario. The fair trade movement gives added money to those who produce. It's an initiative which is sweeping Britain and is gathering support from the public and policymakers alike. 2 years ago, the Houses of Parliament became the first British institution to serve only coffee carrying the fair trade mark. Visitors to the seat of British government can sip a blend made from beans bought directly from farmers' organisations at a fair price. The British International Development Secretary, Claire Short, believes there's enormous power yet to come out of these ethical movements, and the potential to improve standards is great. The sales of fair trade products are growing at some 40% a year in Britain. It includes clothes, food, even pensions. The National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham is the venue for a spring trade fair for gifts and lifestyle products. One of the most popular stands for buyers represents Tradecraft, the UK's largest independent fair trade organisation. Its chief executive, Philippe Angier, says that as consumers we're also bargain hunters, and we're attracted when we see 30% off or 50% off. However, we have to rethink what bargains mean if it's at the expense of somebody not having a meal in the Philippines, India or China. Then that's a very short-sighted view of what's good for humanity. Above 3,000 feet on the rim of the Peruvian Andes sits the headquarters of Cochla. It's a coffee farmers cooperative. Many of its 5,000 members have only a few acres of coffee, but by working together, they can successfully compete against large private conglomerates. Fair trade provides greater security for the producers by guaranteeing a minimum price. It makes a big difference, says coffee farmer Froilán Oliveira. Some went towards my children's college education, and for the younger ones who are still at school, it helped buy exercise books, uniforms and other things they need. Now if someone within the family is ill, we can afford to visit the doctor and to buy medicines. When Froilán Oliveira was president of Cochla, he was invited to see how the European market operated. He visited this London supermarket to see for himself how the coffee was sold. Café Direct, an associate company of Tradecraft, gives the cooperative a guaranteed market and brings fair trade to the high street. Café Direct is sold in all of the main UK supermarkets and has 3% of the market share. Unlike coffee, tea is grown in the main on large plantations like this one in Tanzania. But this is a plantation with a difference. and it's one of the most modern in the world. It's owned by the Commonwealth Development Corporation and sells some of its output on fair trade terms. Peter Jackson, manager of the Cabina Tea Plantation, says fair trade as I see it is a win-win situation. We feel we have a very motivated workforce and we feel that productivity is enhanced and everyone benefits. The houses, the schools, the clinics, the way people are treated in the way of salaries, the way we try to beautify the area, looking at the totality of health, safety and the environment. For the UK consumer, it's a question of choosing the right goods from the bewildering array on the shelves. Fair trade companies are skilled at getting the best deal for producers. But fair trade as a concept extends to every part of the primary producer's life. In this area of Tanzania, honey has been harvested from the forest since time immemorial. Edward and his family rely on the income, and he sells his honey through a local cooperative under fair trade agreements. Edward says
they should choose our honey because it's organic. And besides, it's a good income to these poor farmers. They earn money to train their kids through schools and also build houses for themselves.
the range of products coming under the fair trade umbrella is constantly broadening. Quality chocolate comes from these golden beans of Ghana. Small producers grow all the beans that provide more than half the country's income. Kuapa Koku is one of the country's first farmer-controlled cooperatives, and fair trade has been instrumental in its success. Fair trade organisations from several European countries provided both advice and cash. Now, after only 7 years, it can pay its farmers a bonus. It's just one example of how fair trade makes a difference. The lives of millions more could be transformed if more commodities were fairly traded. This year, Tradecraft will help producers and their families have 3 million days' worth of fair wages. That means 3 million days of food on the table and 3 million days when children can go to school. That's what's making a difference. For producers, the Birmingham Fair is an opportunity to meet colleagues from other nations and gauge the important European market. In March each year, a national fair trade fortnight is held. Its aim is simple: to ensure that growers in developing countries get a fair deal for their goods. A horrible prospect, although commonplace in the late 17th century. It's something these modern-day students, on their enforced exercise, are coming to understand on their tour of Nottingham's Galleries of Justice. These palatial front steps belie a grim past. It was on this very threshold that criminals sentenced to death were hung by the neck until they were dead. The last public hanging here in 1844 caused such a riot that people died in the surging crowd. To avoid the melee, these gallows were erected in the prison's exercise yard. It was much safer, but only slightly less sensational. The Galleries of Justice are all original buildings, comprising an Edwardian period police station, 2 Victorian-era courtrooms, 3 prisons and medieval cave cells, all of which have been used for crime, punishment and justice over the centuries. The students are learning about the importance of a crime scene, and some, who have been especially naughty, are having their fingerprints taken. The museum was the idea of Reading solicitor Geoffrey Goldsmith. English law forms the basis of the law in many other countries and holds great tradition in England, yet there was no museum of law to recognise that. Actors bring the past alive, and the hands-on approach helps youngsters come to grips with the complexities of English law. Understanding the law can give a sense of citizenship and teaches children about their own rights. There's been some form of court here since the 1400s. This imposing room dates back to the Victorian era and was Nottingham's main court until 1986, when demand outgrew the site and a new complex was built elsewhere. Hearing about a real court case of the 1800s opens up the debate on crime and punishment. It's hoped the visit will make the law seem less intimidating, yet still discourage young people from ending up inside here for real. This is what most of the world's forests will look like in 50 years' time if wholesale clearance for agriculture and the timber trade continues at its present rate. But it needn't be like this. These trees are being felled for timber, but selectively, not indiscriminately. This allows the forest to regenerate naturally and prevent soil erosion. A small but growing proportion of the world's forest is now being managed in this way. The international organisation, the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC, polices the scheme and gives its stamp of approval to timber from sustainably managed forests. In London, international companies who use timber for furniture and other items gather at the Forests for Life conference and trade fair to show the ethical side of the wood trade. The Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, reports that 20 million hectares of the world's forests are currently covered by the FSC certification scheme. The WWF hopes to mobilise governments, companies and consumers to increase this protected area. Companies do not always find it easy to find FSC certified timber for their wares. Scancom, which claims to be the world's largest supplier of outdoor furniture, manufactures its products in Indonesia, China and Vietnam. Scott Pinton, General Manager for Scancom, said they use the FSC webpage to find their closest FSC source. Three countries, Brazil, Latvia and Sweden, have pledged in London to put more of their forests into the certification scheme. WWF hopes the event will help boost the growing area of certified forest in the world. At this event, about a third of the world's forest industry is represented. 1 tree in 3 that's cut on the planet ends up getting used, sold or traded in some way by people that are attending this event. The certification scheme should help timber exporting countries strike a realistic balance between the economics of the wood trade and the needs of the local inhabitants who depend for their livelihood on the rich natural resource that is the forest. Visitors to London will hardly fail to notice an unusual change to one of the West End's shopping landmarks. Department store Selfridges saw a commercial opportunity when it realised its facade cleaning job would mean unsightly views of the century-old building for up to 9 months. So it decided to commission possibly the world's largest work of art to cover the scaffolding. Sam Taylor Wood, one of Britain's brightest stars of contemporary art, has used the 300 by 20 metre canvas for her work entitled 15 Seconds. The piece parodies the Elgin marble frieze from the Parthenon in Greece, but instead of classical gods and demigods, the Temple of Shopping has been adorned with modern-day cultural icons. It's no coincidence that Elton John forms the centrepiece directly above the main entrance. The flamboyant singer is famed for his outlandish shopping sprees. In response to a reporter's question about the size of the pictures, the singer replied, "Largest one ever. I mean, I'm pretty large anyway, but that is the largest one. Yeah. It's very fitting that I'm over the front because I've been described as the Empress of Shopping, or whatever it is." Elton John appears to be looking into the street, surrounded by musicians, models, politicians, even a celebrity chef. Among those enjoying their 15 minutes of fame, a Blur guitarist Alex James, and actors Richard E. Grant, Ray Winstone and Jane Horrocks. Taylor Wood's work, shortlisted for the coveted Turner Prize, is known for its accessibility to both the art pundit and the average person. Her piece is actually the world's largest photograph, reproduced through a complicated process using German technology. Selfridges says its functional concept, that will wrap around all four sides of the store, is a triumph for art, shopping and problem solving. And that's all for today. Join us again next time for a postcard look at interesting people, places, the arts and curiosities.